And me? Well, it doesn't matter what I do. You can check us out, The Sports Cubicle, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Central on WCPT 820 Chicago. Gotta go. Sports Cubicle, 9 p.m. Sundays, WCPT.
Tonight on Democracy Now!
In Chicago, an ICE agent shot and killed a man last week during a traffic stop. We'll speak with Chicago Congressmember Delia Ramirez. Then ICE detains a Chicago day laborer after he sued a group of off-duty Chicago police officers. Was it retaliation?
All those stories and more tonight at 10 on WCPT 820.
Turn up the heat on every drive with a Porsche from the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Our tariff-free vehicles are available for immediate delivery, like the 2025 Porsche Cayenne. And right now, lease the 2025 Macan Electric for only $949 a month for 39 months. Don't miss out on the $7,500 EV tax credit ending September 30th. And grab your electric Porsche today at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park or PorscheExchange.com. $4,929 to its excludes tax, title, license, and document. No security deposit required. Expires 9/30/2025.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Wednesday morning, progressives. Chins up, shoulders back. It's time to fight, y'all. Yes, it is. And stay in this fight. Welcome to the September 17th, 2025 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, heartlandsignal.com, and YouTube. And you can email me at richard@wcpt820.com. Follow me on all the socials, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, Substack. That's where we hang out when we're doing the posting thing, as they say. And by all means, catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. There you can get Choose Views, featured interviews, of course, and Joan Esposito live, local and progressive, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, and all of our other shows and interviews, including Out Chicago, our weekend programming. You got to check it out. Make sure you're making your way over there to heartlandsignal.com. And speaking of Heartland Signal, it's too much to cover in this short period of time this morning, but make your way over there. Wisconsin Democratic State Senator, I should say, Kelda Roys has announced her run for governor. We got to get her back on the show, Matt. She was a great guest a few weeks ago. And just the Republican Party completely making themselves look kind of silly. Back and forth on the ACA, back and forth on taxes. It's just a true cluster of their ineffectiveness and mediocrity as elected officials. I'm not even going to call them legislators because they're not really legislating. They're just kind of placeholders. So make your way over to heartlandsignal.com to check out what we've got going over there with our articles and posts. Today, our show, we're power-packed today. Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63 is going to be with us in the 6:30 hour, a little bit earlier than normal because Kurt's a good guy and he kind of let us move some things around, given the fact that in studio, we will have with us retired Major General Randy Manor, who will be talking about leadership. We're going to talk about a number of things. He'll be with us in the 7 o'clock hour in studio. And then author, and I like to call her just a woman that's seen some things that most of us haven't and experienced some things that most of us have not, and that's Leta McCollough, Seletzky. And her story is, we've had her on before, and her story is pretty amazing. Her father is the person behind the story, The Kneeling Man, which is under her authorship about her father, who was on the balcony when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and is the one kneeling down, putting the napkin over his face and neck. So, we'll probably today, to my I've made a commitment to you guys to move our conversations on, Matt. But I know that today, given where we are, that we will most likely, given our guest, talk about, we'll talk about leadership, we'll talk about violence, we'll talk about how we move forward. And with the folks that we've got on today, we'll definitely have some expert thinking in that space. I'm looking forward to the three of them being with us. Kurt, Major General Manor, and Ms. Seletzky. So we'll get to that. So I just have to say this real quickly. You know, we lose people sometimes, and we have people that are in our lives and then they're gone. As you guys know by now, Robert Redford passed away yesterday. A great spokesperson off screen about what's right for our communities. He was not afraid to speak his mind about the things that he saw in our society, and he was a leader in that space. So I want to definitely give him his props as best I can. Obviously, I never met Robert Redford, but watched many of his movies over the years. I can go back it's weird to say this. I can go back a few decades with Robert Redford's movies, but he always performed well and was always one that you'd want to emulate as an actor, but just as a regular person, as an everyday human being, because of the stands that he took through his life and the support that he provided for so many actors, but so many other folks in everyday society. So give some flowers to Robert Redford and the great work that he and the great life that he led. And if you get a chance, you can text me or you can call me what your favorite Robert Redford movie was. My favorite one isn't one that a lot of people know about it, but it may not hit the list of favorites. And my favorite one is a movie called 3 Days of the Condor, and it is to me it's probably in my top 3 favorite movies, period, of all time. And I've got others that would make that top 5 list. But 3 Days of the Condor is my favorite Robert Redford movie. You should check it out. Great soundtrack by the great Dave Grusin and Lee Ritenour. And as you know, if you know a little bit about movie music and soundtracks, Dave Grusin is legendary for the work that he's done on so many movies, on Golden Pond. The list is just extraordinary. I can't even get him out. But Robert Redford, flowers to him, kudos to his life, and just wanted to pay that little bit of acknowledgement. But right now, check this out, progressives.
Look, I have said before that you can't take anything that he says seriously from one day to the next. He's attacking verbally. Sometimes he attacks sending his agents in. Sometimes he forgets. I think he might be suffering from some dementia. And the next day he'll wake up on the other side of the bed and stop talking about Chicago. So I've never really counted on anything that he said as real. When he said that he wasn't coming to Chicago, I didn't trust that. When he says he is coming to Chicago, it's hard to believe anything he says.
Those are correct words. It's hard to believe anything that he says. The one thing that I will say that I won't say I believe, but I acknowledge when it comes to Donald Trump is that he is doing everything that he can to implement the things that he said he didn't know anything about, that being Project 2025. You all remember last summer when, late spring and summer, when it really hit the airways, and everybody was talking about it, and you guys remember me referencing what the actress Taraji P. Henson did at the BET Awards in terms of talking about it, and then it blew up in terms of everyday folks not knowing about it. And then the mainstream media decided that they dropped the ball because Karen Byrne and I have been talking about it since February, since the show started in February of 2024, shortly thereafter. We talked about it on the family meeting. Suddenly, it's out there. And then Trump's denying that he knew anything about it. But that's the one thing I will say now. He is, if you believe anything he says, is implementing that. But the governor's right. You can't trust him. We should not trust him or any of the members of his cabinet, period, because they are not to be trusted. And part of the reason they're not to be trusted is because they outright lie. Y'all saw, if you saw some of the clips of Kash Patel and how the Democrats on the committee grilled him, from Senator Booker to drawing a blank on his name now, but a number of them got after him, as they should. But the administration is full of a lot of mediocre people who've pushed the truth, if not lied. And in many cases, it's backed up. And they're meant to Governor's point, then if not Donald Trump, then the minions are. Full of liars, full of mediocre people. And when mediocre people are put in situations, this is what happens. When they're put in situations where they're beyond their depth, Matt, they make stuff up. Okay? And I'll put this to the litmus test for all of us. When we're doing something that we're not quite certain of, none of us are immune to what I'm about to say, and that is to have a moment of, how do I deal with this? Do I kind of skirt around the issue, or do I admit that I don't know? And sometimes it's the hardest thing to say is, I don't know. I'm not sure. I force myself to do it as best I can. I'd rather say, guys, I don't know. I'm not sure. I said this many times. I know a lot about a lot of things, but I don't know everything about anything. And so what's happened with this mediocre regime is that a lot of them are in waters that are too deep for them. So they end up making stuff up. I caught a great clip of Don Lemon, and although she's not part of the administration, or she's part of the regime, and that's Nancy Mace. And during an interview, and he nailed her down. He came back with a great follow-up when she was throwing out BS during a little kind of stop-and-go press thing that she did. So in the depths that they're in, they end up making stuff up, if not lying. And Governor Pritzker's right. You can't trust them. So you can trust this. We're going to take a break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR down in Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. That's 800-708-3091.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to the show. Let's hit a Matt with a couple of Choose Views news items on this September 17th, 2025. Retail spending remains resilient. Retail sales rose more than expected in August amid back-to-school shopping. The value of purchases increased 0.6% after a 0.5% gain in July, according to the U.S. Commerce Department. It said yesterday on online retailers, clothing stores, and sporting goods led advances in 9 out of 13 categories. Spending has held up in spite of the softening labor market, which the Federal Reserve is expected to bolster with potential interest rate cuts today. All right. And to that point, the Fed is expected to potentially cut rates. It's been back and forth. I did as much poking around to see where we're going to actually land. But with the Federal Reserve widely expected to lower interest rates for the first time in 9 months, attention will likely focus today on its projections for future cuts. The central bank is almost universally seen by investors reducing its benchmark target of by a quarter percentage point to between 4.4% to 4.25%. The question is whether the drastic decline in hiring since its last meeting in July is enough to push most members to focus one or two cuts for the rest of the borrowing for the rest of the year. And, so we'll see what happens there. Student loan debt is definitely now starting to show up as dinging credit reports. The average U.S. credit score dropped for the second consecutive year from 715 to 715, according to new data from FICO. As consumers fall deeper into debt, contributing factors include elevated interest rates, inflation, and the resumption of federal student loan delinquency reporting on consumer credit reports. In March of this year, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York said late payments by student loan borrowers could cause credit scores to drop. Notably, FICO found that more consumers now score in both the highest and lowest score ranges. All right. Oracle is at the center of the TikTok future ownership. It's emerging, meaning Oracle as a key player in a potential deal to transfer TikTok to U.S. ownership. As according to reports from CBS and CNBC, a consortium is expected to take over the social media company, with Oracle keeping its cloud contract. The news comes one day after the U.S. announced it had reached a framework to divest TikTok of Chinese ownership over security concerns. We'll keep you posted on that. Last but not least, Eli Lilly is to build a $5 billion U.S. facility. They've committed $5 billion to U.S. expansion since 2020. First stop, Virginia. The drug maker said yesterday, announced it will construct a $5 billion facility near Richmond to produce a special class of targeted drugs, primarily treating cancer. So on the heels of our conversation yesterday, that's a good thing. The company, known for the weight loss drug Zepbound, says it will reveal 3 more sites that could be producing medicine within 5 years. While many pharmaceutical companies are reshoring production to avoid tariffs, CEO David Ricks told CNBC the 2017 tax overhaul played a greater role in their decision. So there you go, guys. A couple of Choose Views news items on this September 17th, 2025. All right. So a couple of other not Choose Views news items, just some current events that I want you guys just to be kind of topically aware of. And I'll play this one. I'll go to this one last. Pay very close attention to this. This is a story that I will keep my eyes on, but I want you guys to pay very close attention to this. Marco Rubio, who is the Secretary of State, is kind of partnering up with a couple of the Republican members of the House of Representatives in a way that's not to be taken lightly. It's probably the best way I want to position this. What they're looking to do is to make it easier for the State Department and the government at large, the federal government at large, to essentially revoke U.S. passports. And I'm doing the research that I can and reviewing and reading as much as I can on this. The provision is a small part of a larger sort of comprehensive thing that the State Department is trying to do. And it's basically giving you the top line of this, because we don't have the time to get too deep in the weeds, but I'll get more into this as the days go by. Essentially, it started off as a situation where they were looking to prevent someone that's convicted of aiding and abetting human traffickers and foreign terrorist organizations from fleeing the country. That's the part that's not, I don't have a problem with that. But what they're trying to do is to kind of distract from what they're also looking to do is create a little extra power for the State Department to meld into that, bring into that people who have made statements, speech that is not necessarily pro-Israel. So if people have said, or they find this is a slippery slope, and it's one where, like I said, I'm digging in to find out more and more on what this House resolution could look like. But essentially, the federal government's approach is to try to stunt or freeze folks who have had any pro-Palestinian speeches, posts, or been part of protest. And in doing that, essentially make it difficult for that person to maintain holding their passport. So the challenge with that is obvious. It's a slippery slope because it's about free speech. And now, if this speech is something that's threatening the United States, I mean, we can get into that part of the conversation. But the top line of it for me is about freedom of speech. If a person can't say certain things, as long as they're not threatening people, threatening the country, et cetera, or supporting some form of terrorism or trafficking, if they to have their passport be revoked is concerning. I hate to use the words that a lot of these politicians use. Concerning, I'd be PO'd about that. Okay, not just concerning. I'd be PO'd about that because then it gets into. So then, if you aren't wearing the right clothing, you're not hanging out with the right people. It could go down that path. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm just saying, we'll pay attention to it. I'll keep you guys posted. But I ask you guys to kind of do your own review into this. And this might be one of those times where we're making massive calls to elected officials about passports being suspended or revoked due to the fact that because of someone's speech. That is not something we want to just kind of look at and look away from. So I'll keep you posted on that. The New York Times has determined that they are going to fight back on this crazy $15 billion lawsuit from Donald Trump. It's just showing his desperation. And he's targeting the names of course, the New York Times Company, Susan Craig, Russ Buettner, Peter Baker, Michael Schmidt, and Penguin Random House. The lawsuit alleges that, that the Times is malicious and defamatory and disparaging. Anytime someone says something that's the truth and it's hurtful to him, he throws out a lawsuit. And, that's just another baseless claim. But they're fighting back. My point of all this is they aren't showing any signs as of yet of bending the knee. And that's what they need to be doing. That's what all media entities need to be doing is continue to speak the truth. Do not. So the reason I'm kind of bringing this together is media has to continue to speak the truth, as do we. Not going to be afraid of losing my passport because of speaking the truth about what this regime is doing. What are they going to do? Force people to stay in the United States that are just speaking their truth, Matt? I mean, if you're not, again, the caveat, not even the caveat, just the clarification is people aren't, if you're doing things that are harmful to people on an individual basis, i.e. trafficking or any of the things that are, abetting any bad behavior, then that's a different story. But if me, Matt, and 10,000 other people are at a rally and we're speaking our minds about what we don't think should be happening in the Middle East, whether what Israel is doing, then, we should not be at risk of losing our passport. Or if we're at a rally about what the administration's doing that's harming people, then our passports should not be something that's on the table that the federal government can say that they're going to revoke. The New York Times is pushing back in a similar way. They're saying, no, we told the truth about you. We spoke truth about you. We did our research. That is, so they are seeing it as a bogus lawsuit, and kudos to them for standing up and fighting back. And a little bit of fun before we hit this break. I guess you could call it fun. UK activists welcome Trump with the world's largest Epstein photo. And it's a photo of Donald and Epstein together. So basically, how does this read? They just unveiled the world's largest copy of the infamous Trump-Epstein photo. And it's kind of cool to see when, sometimes the UK, they just do it differently. And I kind of appreciate the ballsiness of those in the UK. And so, yeah, there's a photo. You guys can Google it or search and see that it's out there. And there's another one that says everyone hates Elon. So just something to put a little bit of smile on your face. The world's largest Trump and Epstein photo. has been unveiled by the notorious folks in the UK. So there you go, guys. Let's take a break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago. And now, of course, at WARR down in Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
WCPT replay.
I am, of course, thrilled to be joined by Simon Rosenberg. We can't in any way compromise on and sort of sugarcoat or put lipstick on the Trumpian pig on this sort of racial assault against people of lesser means and of different race. This whole notion that somehow white people in this world are somehow superior to all the other people in the world. Maybe, we could have believed that 150 or 200 years ago, but today it's an absurdity, right? And so we have an obligation. I think that we have to understand now that one of our central collective projects, Edwin, together, is to face white supremacy head on and defeat it.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caro. For today, some patchy fog possible to start. Otherwise, we'll see a good deal of sunshine, high temperatures into the mid-80s. Then for tonight, mostly clear, a low of 62. Still very summer-like on Thursday, high of 85 degrees with abundant sunshine. Friday, more of a mixture of sun and clouds, up to 82. Slight chance for an afternoon storm Saturday, low 80s. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 63.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey, guys, welcome back to the show is right. 773-763-9278 is our Credo mobile phone and text line. So give us a holler or send us a text if you don't like to talk on the radio, but we'd love to have you. Someone that is, as you guys know, has become a real important part of our show, and most definitely someone that has said a few things and posted some things that, we all need to hear about. But he and I haven't had a chance to talk on the air since last week's school shooting and shooting of Charlie Kirk. But this morning with us, it's Wednesday, a little bit earlier than normal, is our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63. Good morning, Kurt, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Richard. How are you doing today? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm doing well. And, you and I, over the last month and a half, have been fighting through, you had COVID, I had scratchy throat and, noisy chest and all that. And it sounds like you and I have finally made it to the other side.
Yeah.
Man.
And I'm glad the other side, meaning that we're still here.
Good Lord, brother. Hey, man, listen, here's the truth about it. We don't look at ourselves as old. I'm a couple years older than Kurt, but we as I say, we would have been in high school together, literally. But as we get a little bit older, there is a truth that I think we all recognize, and that is when there is a thing, an issue, an injury, a cold, a sickness, it does take a little bit longer for that stuff to kind of heal and get better. That's a reality. But the positive side outlook of that is just recognize and listen to your body. Listen to what's going on. Don't pretend like it ain't happening. Don't pretend like nothing's going on, or not to be hypochondriac, but pay attention to yourself. If something doesn't feel right, talk to somebody. Don't be that guy or gal that says, everything's fine, because it takes a little bit longer to come to the other side. Isn't that right, Kurt?
Absolutely. There's a different meaning of pushing through the pain than there was when I was younger than now. So,
This is true.
I'd take a little bit more cautious with it,
Hey, man,
I can still hear,
we don't bound downstairs anymore, right?
Exactly. You're right.
Oh, man. Well, we haven't had a chance to talk on the air since last week's situation last Wednesday because it happened Wednesday after you and I had our segment. But a lot of things have gone down. A lot of things have been posted. A lot of things have been said. And I just want you guys to know that listen to our show, that listen to Kurt's segment and follow him on social media, that, I want to give Kurt a couple moments to talk about something that happened right in his community that made this kind of personal. And he posted a reel about this vigil that took place. And in the context of where we are right now, guys, I made a commitment to talk more about gun violence and how we have to rectify that, and talk less about Charlie Kirk because of all the reasons that I don't want to talk about him, and talk about how we've got people that are still in a cult that show up for a vigil for a racist, sexist, misogynist, harmful person. Kurt, take it away. What happened in your community?
Well, as you know, I live in a small community of about 10,000 people. Our whole county has around 29,000. This is rural America, okay? 45 minutes southwest of Fort Wayne, Indiana, if anybody knows where Fort Wayne is, in a little town called Wabash. It's not where the college is. It's where the river starts, okay? The Wabash River starts 12 miles away from downtown Wabash. We are a community that is 94% white, and 76% voted for the felon in the last election. And when this went down, obviously I made some posts. I have two Facebook pages. I have my personal one, and then I have my Who's Your Blue page. And my personal one is a smaller page, and I don't post a lot of stuff on there because I try to keep it, on my other pages. But I posted some stuff about this, and man, did I get hammered. And I was emotional about some things, just like everybody was, because of everything that had first come out, with some of the rhetoric that was coming from the right and the hate that was being shoved our way, and the blame that was being put on us. So I had a couple people in our community who are religious fanatics that just, came down on me. And then later on in the week, I found out that they were having a vigil Monday night here at our city park, city property, for Charlie Kirk. And there's a pretty good-sized pavilion there that, has been used over the years used to be used by a lot of the factories in town to hold company picnics and stuff. But since we don't have much manufacturing left in our community, it's just somewhere that, people gather once in a while. But anyway, they had a vigil Monday night in honor of Charlie Kirk. And somewhere around 500 people showed up for this event. They pretty much engulfed our city park, and they held candles and sang religious songs in honor of this guy. And I sat down Monday evening to actually write a Substack before I went to bed. My wife was already in bed and everything, and I found this video, and it I don't know, Richard, it hit me in a way that, I hadn't been affected by something like that for quite a while. And I don't know what it was. I'm still struggling with it, but I couldn't sleep Monday night. I couldn't get it out of my head because I felt fear, I felt anger, I felt wonderment. I mean, I'm still struggling to try to understand how the death of someone who was just filled with so much hate and bigotry and just lied, how he could be turned into a martyr for them and memorialized like he is. I mean, they're comparing him to Martin Luther King and Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. And I don't know, Richard.
Yeah. I'm going to say this. this way. That's kind of crazy. Take this the right way. I'm glad you experienced that, and let me tell you why. First of all, you got a lot of us on the other side of the sadness and the all the things that you just shared that are going to pull you through this. You know that. But I'm glad because the reason I say that is this. My good friend and brother, Eric Grant, and who's the host of the Family Meeting, has been talking about this forever. And I have too in my own way. A lot of times people don't want to acknowledge, yet alone believe, that those people exist. Okay? So the reason I say I'm glad, I don't mean that literally glad. I appreciate the courage and the strength for you to talk about this, but also to be in that in that environment. But it speaks to something that Eric's talked about for a long, long time. People will say, there's no monsters in the closet. You guys have heard me use that phrase before, and I've been saying for the longest time, yeah, they're in the closet. Now they're under the bed. Now they're in the sheets with us. No pun intended. But they're in, This is an example. What you just illuminated is an example that those folks exist. People want to say that they don't exist and that mindset doesn't exist and that they're not in a cult and that they're not just a little bit away from what we believe in. What they believe in is what they believe in. But it proves, without a doubt, and I saw the clip. I saw, what you put out there. Those folks exist. And it can be saddening, it can be depressing, it can be a variety of emotional descriptors. So I think that's the part that we have to remind ourselves of, that those people exist. Now, the question is, how do we get, I'm using the phrase get to the other side a lot today, but how do we get to and past this I don't think we can do it without acknowledging that they exist. To bury our heads and say that they don't is a fool's game. And you said this before in terms of how all of our leadership on the left have to make sure that they're acknowledging that this is a fight and that these people are not our colleagues. That's my language. But and they are not there to help us. Not at all. So I appreciate
you and I go ahead, I'm sorry.
I appreciate you sharing that story and sharing those thoughts. And the message that I'm taking from it and sharing is these folks exist, y'all. It's not a myth that they don't exist or no they're not out there. They exist. Kurt.
Yeah, you and I have spoken about this on many occasions. I have said to you many times, this whole thing is about white supremacy and racism. And I believe that, and I believe it more now than ever I have. But I guess seeing it with my own eyes in my backyard just it validated everything that I've been saying and that we've been talking about and that many of us have been talking about for the last couple years, if not longer. This is about white supremacy and racism. This is the again part of the MAGA slogan is taking us back to colonial America, where the white man had
dominion over everything. Dominion over everything.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. Black man didn't have any voice. Women didn't have any voice. Nobody did. It was just a white guy. That's where they're trying to take us. I mean, the fact that a white guy in a white state killed a white dude and black colleges were threatened immediately and had to be shut down, and now they're reported of they're calling them lynchings, and you got to be careful with the words we're using, but we're finding black men hanging from trees, or at least,
well, and here's the thing.
And they're in Mississippi, and they're calling it a suicide, and he's evidently got fractures and bruises. I mean, what does that sound like, Richard? Does that sound like 1920?
Let me tell you something. People are shocked when I say this. My father, in the late 60s and early 70s, my parents, I should say, but my father more specifically, took me to places in Mississippi where hangings took place in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So that to know in my lifetime that happened in my father's lifetime, and now to come where we are and it's still happening, for anybody that wants to run around, and I'm going to call out some people right now, those that want to run around and say, hey, Richard, come on, dude, we're past all that. You are a damn fool, because we're not. And what happened, and listen, I'd probably add to the number of black people in your community exponentially if I rolled into town to hang out with you. But my point is, there is a vigil in a town of 10,000 people for a racist, sexist, misogynist, white nationalist. And Kurt had to experience that. So don't tell me, anybody, that we're not still dealing with that. And then you have a young man that gets hung from a tree in Mississippi. So when you hear people say, oh, it's not about racism, it's about making the country better and balance. No. And for anybody of color or of the LGBTQ community, and I mean anybody that is supporting this regime, given what's just happened in the last week, you have lost your ever-loving mind. And I'm not apologizing for saying that.
You're an idiot.
The solution is, just, as Kurt has said, the solution is coming from from white America has to fix this. But for anybody who
go ahead. I'm sorry.
For anybody who is of color or of the LGBTQ community, and frankly, women who call themselves progressives, and I believe that when they say that they are. This is not a game. This is real. You cannot support any of these people because they will take away the rights that we say that we believe in as a democracy in the United States of America. But I wanted to give you a moment just to talk about what you saw on real time and what you experienced and what those feelings were, because there's somebody out there, Kurt, I promise you, there's somebody out there that was just made to feel a little less lonely because they're in a community where they might be a member of the LGBTQ community and they're dealing with that trauma every day, or other communities.
Oh, I know.
And so I appreciate you sharing what you experienced, because somebody benefited from knowing that they're not alone.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me to talk about that. And I want to say this because I don't want you to be accused of being a racist because you made this comment. Yeah.
Go ahead.
But
I'm sorry.
The problem in our country is white boys, okay? It's white boys. Yeah. And anyone who wants to argue that with me, please, my email is HoosierBlues63@gmail.com. Send me an email. We'll discuss it. The problem in our country is white, racist men and boys. And I call them boys because that's what they truly are. They are so weak in the mind that they have to expel their hate on everybody else because they have issues within themselves that they can't deal with. And one more thing about this lynching. One of the most famous pictures out there of showing a lynching of the inhumane hanging of black men from trees is from two individuals by the name of Thomas Shipp and Abram Smith. Okay, and I just want people to know. Okay, that picture, which many of them don't, and if you're not familiar with the picture I'm talking about, please search their names, Thomas Shipp and Abram Smith, okay? These two innocent black men were lynched and hung from a tree in Marion, Indiana in 1930. Marion, Indiana is 16 miles south of my community, okay? And so when we talk about lynchings, people think of Mississippi and the South. But no. Indiana is one of the most racist states in our union. Yeah. It was one of the former capitals of the KKK, and they are still in existence and all over the place right now. And this is what we're witnessing. We're witnessing the rebirth, or not the rebirth, but the
it never died. Listen, man.
It never died, but they're getting stronger. It's like it's growing.
Yeah, it's.
But anyway,
no. Great points, and I wanted to Like I said, Kurt, there's somebody out there that is in a community that is probably in some scenarios or feels as though they're alone. And if they're listening to this show, today's broadcast, hopefully your words of you're not alone or that this does exist gives them a little bit, just an inkling of awareness that there's others out there that are fighting this fight. So let's take a little bit of a pivot and let's talk about strength for a moment. And one of the people that you have been very unapologetically a supporter of is Governor J.B. Pritzker here in Illinois, and of course Mayor Johnson here in Chicago. And and by the way, guys, you're listening to Chew's Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chew. We're talking to our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63. Kurt, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson, have done the work partnering together with other state officials at this point to kind of have the taco man sort of back away from sending troops to Chicago, National Guard troops to Chicago. And it seems as though at this point that, the strength of those two leaders and the others around him have worked. Unfortunately, he's redirecting that to Memphis. And so, but in terms of leadership, the governor and the mayor showed that and made it clear publicly on many news conferences and news shows and press conferences that they were not welcome here. So I'm hoping that it stays consistent. But like I said before, I don't want to see this taken to other cities in the country, no matter if they're in red cities, red states at all. But I love the strength of our governor and of our mayor.
Yeah, I mean, the respect level I have for those two men, I mean, it was there before, but it has risen to a whole new level because of the stance that they took. And, I make content about them and I talked about them because I admire them. I live in a state where, we have a Democratic mayor of Indianapolis, our largest city, but he's a fool. He's riddled in controversy. He's just a weak leader. And then, we have Mike Braun as our governor.
And your wonderful lieutenant governor.
Oh my God! And our Secretary of State, who just turned over every single all the information of every single voter, registered voter in the state of Indiana to the federal government. So now they have, because they want to know who the Democrats are. They want to know who the registered Democrats are. That's what they're doing.
Yep.
This guy his appetite for a war is frightening, and he's looking for it. It doesn't matter if it's domestically, if it's against Qatar, if it's against Venezuela. He's looking for a war. He wants to show his might. He wants to. And it's just funny because he was the no new wars president for so many years, and now look at this guy, and he's going to poke the bear, and the bear's going to turn around and bite him eventually, and he's wanting this to happen in the United States. He wants to go to Memphis and create violence against minority population. I mean, Memphis is a largely black populated city. I think I read it's one of the largest per capita black cities in America.
It is.
So he goes from Chicago to Memphis. Why does he do? What does he want to do? He wants to create violence. He wants some resistance in a violent form so he could justify going in and murdering U.S. citizens. That's exactly what's happening. And JB and Brandon proved. How do you deal with a bully who wants to take your lunch money? You say, no, you can't have my lunch money. And the bully eventually will quit asking or demanding your lunch money. I know that's
what happens. It's a great example, though, because what happens is that when a person stands up to the bully, a person singularly stands up to the bully, then there are other people who follow the person that stands up to the bully. And the greatest example that we can look at is some of the spiritual stories of that. And the David versus Goliath doesn't fall on deaf ears here. You stand up to the bully. I mean, the federal government has more quote unquote power than a state or a city does. But when the city of Chicago, Mayor Johnson, and the state of Illinois, Governor Pritzker, and other state officials stood up to Donald Trump, we saw what happened. I'm not going to use the words back down, but he certainly redirected his attempt to cause fear of citizens of different cities and states. I don't want this from Memphis. You're right. The percentage, I think it's somewhere in the 65 percentile. I could be a little bit off there of black folks in Memphis. But irrespective, if it were 10%, I wouldn't want the federal government going.
Exactly.
I've said this from jump, that I don't want us as a country using resources to solve issues that can be solved by the people that are there, the law enforcement that are in a city, in a county, in a state. It's just stupid. But so we know that when you've said this, I've said this. When you've got declining crime numbers in cities in America, or stalling crime numbers in cities in America, and local law enforcement is able to make those things happen. Imagine how much more they could do if the resources that were spent in stupid ways by this regime were properly dispersed to the cities that need them to do the thing to help the local law enforcement navigate when it comes to crime and navigate when it comes to better opportunities for people in metropolitan areas and in rural areas. But we have some dumb mediocre, feckless folks in this regime. And to your point, Kurt, all they want to do is try to rattle their saber and look and sound tough. But every time they come up against the buzzsaw, they get chopped down. And a good example is what you saw Senator Booker do yesterday. And I keep drawing a blank on the other senator that just wore out Kash Patel. He probably had to go home and he had probably go home and change his underwear. They wore him out yesterday. So that's what has to happen. You got to push back. And you've been doing a great job of that, my man. And I have to applaud you for the courage it took for you to talk about not only what you saw, but what you felt, because I promise you somebody out there needed to hear those words this morning.
Well, thank you. And you give the opportunity for me to share my thoughts in a way that I'm not able to do so on other platforms. So I appreciate it. So, one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to start doing some Zoom calls with the pages that I have created to where people have a platform to talk, and it's just a way that people can express their voices. So I had one Sunday night, and I didn't have a lot of people show up because it was a short. I didn't give a lot of time, and I'm being shadow banned on Instagram. My stuff is just not being seen for some reason. So, but I'm going to continue to fight. But anyway, I met someone attended the Zoom meeting that met you over the weekend at the rally that you attended, and
wow.
I just want to tell Mary. That, I told her I was going to mention her to you, and I'm sure you probably don't know her name, but she was. She found me because of you, and she's a listener of yours, and she made a point to attend the Zoom meeting and just to, her words were, she's inspired by you and I.
Yeah, that's what we want to do, y'all. That's all we're trying to do is keep people inspired, keep people, at the ready right now because it's needed. And if we can embrace the energy that's required to keep us strong, then we're going to keep doing that. And there's no if to it. We are doing it. And it's people like Mary and Karen and Susan. I can't think of the other lady that I met on Saturday that, we are here for you. We are here to make sure that we provide as much energy and strength for all that needed because it's needed right now. And I'm definitely not going to drop the ball here. And if I do, Clark will be there to pick it up and pass it back to me, and I'll pass it back to him. Three-pointer, Kurt Mullett from downtown. All right, man. I made you laugh, and that was one of my goals today because I know it was a weird couple of days. But thanks for being you, and thanks for being with us on the show this morning.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, and I'm looking forward to the rest of your show and some of the conversation you're going to have. So
yeah, man.
We need to communicate.
We got Major General Randy Manor with us this morning, so that's going to be full stop, and then Leta McCollough, Seletzky. So, yeah, I'm got myself ready. So thanks.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for being with us. Dude. Have a great day. Stay safe. You too.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
That is our guy, Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63, in the cauldron right there and dealing with it in a community that has a different opinion on where we should be and what we should be celebrating. But there you go. Let's take a quick break. Matt, this number is 773-763-9278. You are listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM, and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Here's the tale of the daily Medfield. Same old pharmacy, same old bill, but those prices kept rising higher still.
Till the savings Wrangler rode in, cool as can be. Tap Good RX, saving massively.
No plan? Don't matter none. Up to 80% off. Deals are done.
Discounts hitting harder than Ma's chili. Dang. That one little app does all the rest.
Save time and money on prescriptions.
Check Good RX. Good RX is not insurance.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time. The next time you're out to dinner with friends, you can order the shrimp cocktail for the table. And maybe you'll realize it only comes with 4 shrimp after you've already given away 3, but that one shrimp will be so good. And if you switch and save hundreds, you can get shrimp all the time. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time for shrimp. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Choose Views with Richard Chu.
AP News, I'm Hannah Pinjwani. Prosecutors brought a murder charge against the man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray described a note found indicating why Tyler Robinson targeted Kirk.
The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it."
AP correspondent Julie Walker reports a judge has tossed the terrorism charges against Luigi Mangione.
Luigi Mangione walking into a Manhattan court Monday, wrists shackled to his waist, ankles also shackled, wearing his beige jail clothes.
Luigi, how you feeling?
The judge in the state case dismissing terrorism charges against Mangione, charged with killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on a city street in December, but keeping the state's second-degree murder charges, which carries a 15-year to life sentence. The judge said that while there is no doubt the killing was not ordinary street crime, New York law doesn't consider something terrorism simply because it was motivated by ideology. Mangione's lawyers arguing the New York case and a parallel federal death penalty prosecution amounts to double jeopardy, but the judge rejecting that, saying it's premature. Mangione's next court date is December 1st, days before he's due in court in the federal case. At criminal court in Manhattan, I'm Julie Walker.
Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal said Kash Patel claimed during his confirmation hearing that he would not pursue retribution firings as FBI director.
I'm not going to mince words. You lied to us. In the short time that you've been FBI director, you've presided over a rash of retaliatory firing.
A California judge has rejected a request for a new trial for Eric and Lyle Menendez, shutting down another possible path to freedom for the brothers who have served for killing their parents in 1989. This is AP News. AP's Jill Lawless breaks down what to expect from President Donald Trump's trip to the UK.
It's a very high-profile and rather high-stakes visit, designed to show that at a time of international political turmoil and differences between the two countries, the transatlantic special relationship still remains strong. There have only been 4 full state visits by U.S. president. This is the second one for Donald Trump. The first day in Windsor will see pomp and ceremony and royal bling and majesty, the likes of which Britain is extremely good at. The second day of the visit will turn to politics as Donald Trump travels to Chequers for meetings with Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The main order of business politically is what's being touted as an unprecedented tech partnership between the two countries. It's been in the works for quite some time, and the deal is expected to include a number of data centers being opened in the UK, investments in the life sciences, and investments in nuclear power plants.
I'm Haya Panjwani, AP News.
Hey Progressives, this is Richard Chu, host of Chu's Views here on WCPT AM 820, 6 to 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. We have some real challenges in front of us as a country. Since the beginning of this show, I have always felt compelled to bring you the best that I've got. Now, there's always a why to doing whatever we do. So, as we go forward and face these challenges, know this, you listeners are my why. Because I want to make sure I do everything I can to provide a safe, open, forward-moving space that allows you to call, email, text, or just listen to a guy that wants to help you bring out your own championship qualities to truly make this place better for us all. Lofty goal, idealistic, maybe so. But that's my why, and I look forward to bringing you the best that I've got. This is Richard Chu. Stay tuned.
With Amazon Business, smart business buying tools enable buyers to find and purchase items fast. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more at AmazonBusiness.com.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caro. For today, some patchy fog possible to start. Otherwise, we'll see a good deal of sunshine, high temperatures into the mid-80s. Then for tonight, mostly clear, a low of 62. Still very summer-like on Thursday, high of 85 degrees with abundant sunshine. Friday, more of a mixture of sun and clouds, up to 82. Slight chance for an afternoon storm Saturday, low 80s. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 63.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos. Fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
This is Chu's Views with Richard Chu.
Hey guys, welcome back to Chu's Views, 773-763-9278. Thanks for being with us this morning. And thanks to our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63 for sharing with us what he's experiencing down in Wabash, Indiana. And reach out to my man and send him some love because he's a fighter in this fight. And I appreciate him taking time to hang with us this morning. I said we'd be talking about that situation, what Kurt's dealing with, that we would be talking with Leta McCollough, Seletzky, who we've had on the show before, Kneeling Man, and her experience with Dr. King's legacy. And I also said we were going to talk about leadership this morning. And we have with us someone that wears that cape, wears that jacket pretty proudly, and that's retired Major General Randy Manner is with us in studio this morning. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Chu's Views. Welcome to the studio.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. Well, as I said a moment ago, General, the thing that has been really kind of a staple part of your career, both in and since as retired from the Army, is leadership. And you've definitely been someone that has not only been around good leadership, but you've shown good leadership. And right now, one of the things that is a question that so many people are asking for or questioning is the leadership that's lacking on a federal level. If you If you could share your observations about what you see and what you see is lacking at this time on a federal level when it comes to leadership.
I think it's best for me to start with what are the fundamentals of leadership, of great leadership.
Okay.
And if we step back for a second and we look either personally or even historically, who are the people that you really respect as somebody who inspired you, someone who gave you hope? Those are the two most important components of leadership, whether, by the way, it is in business or it's in the military or it's political or community or in your church. Providing inspiration, giving people this idea that there's a reason behind all this. There's things we really want to do. And it's important for us to to keep this in mind. Also, good leaders understand the concept of serving others. It's not about serving themselves. It's all about the concept of making sure that you take care of everyone else before you take care of yourself. During the Revolutionary War, Steuben, who quite frankly was credited for, creating the Revolutionary Army, quite frankly, in Valley Forge, Steuben provided the guidance that said, great leaders know their men. They know them by name. They share the hardships. They understand what is there. And they give them that inspiration and hope that despite how bad things could be, for example, in Valley Forge, that very cold winter, that things are going to get better.
Yeah. Right now, and that's the last piece there, things are going to get better. I feel that a lot of people, I say this, I feel and I think that a lot of people are missing that. They want to, there's a feeling from so many people, and it's whether it be callers, whether it be across the nation, that there are a lot of people that feel a certain amount of despair, a certain amount of fear, and not certainty, uncertainty, because of the last two sentences that you just spoke, that there's not that feeling that things are going to get better, that they may get worse. And as someone that has had such an illustrious career, both in and outside of the military, what are you thinking are some of the things that can allow people to feel as though things are going to get better?
You really have to turn inward to your family, to your religion, your church, your community. It's very important that you find these concepts of hope locally, because when it is absent from a higher level, for example, in this case, nationally, you have to look and find it, because there are these great leaders. I will tell you that I was absolutely inspired by the remarks of the governor of Illinois and the mayor of this great city just only about 10 days ago, when both of them gave that press conference.
Yeah.
I was actually on the air on wherever, in D.C., I believe, and I was going, now those are leaders.
Yeah.
Those are people who are saying, we are going to stand up for our people. We are going to treat people with dignity and respect, because they are a human being.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your color is. It doesn't matter where you came from. It does not matter what your gender is. What matters is you are a human being, and we are going to provide you with hope and inspiration, and to be able to treat you, no matter what your economic level, we're going to treat you the same as everyone else. And so that is a great example, quite frankly, in terms of the people who are listening to this now. If you live in Chicago or you live in Illinois, you should be proud of those leaders that you've elected to stand up for what is right.
And I oftentimes, I mean, I've been fortunate to have Mayor Johnson on the show monthly this year, and it's been an honor to have him on, and Lieutenant Governor Stratton, and of course, indirectly Governor Pritzker. The point I'm making about what you just said about leadership is, leaders, we all are going to make the wrong step. But it's a good leader that can say, I have to recalibrate here and redirect, and I've got to do it in a way that keeps me focused on that end goal or that next goal. And that is what I see in Governor Pritzker and in Mayor Johnson. And it is inspiring to be able to speak about what they're doing right. We know the things that they're doing that may not be perfect need to be worked on, as would be the case with any of us.
Yes. But
they're constantly, I believe, trying to find ways to make themselves better, and then as a result, make the city and the state better. And frankly, the region. We've got folks all over that applaud what Governor Pritzker has done in his 2 terms, and what Mayor Johnson is trying to do early in this first term.
I think it's also important for everyone to understand that all leaders make mistakes. We are human. We make mistakes. Great leaders acknowledge their mistakes, and they learn from their mistakes, and they listen to the people around them that are, quite frankly, not only from the point of view of subject matter experts, it's also something where great leaders listen to the people, and they listen to people at all ranks. One of the most important things that I could ever do as a military leader was make sure 80% of the time that I spent with soldiers. I got out of that office. I got out of that headquarters because I wanted to see what was really going on. When I was in Kuwait, as the Deputy Commanding General of all U.S. forces, all Army forces in the Middle East, I made sure every week I got down and I walked through all the troop areas. Were they clean? Were they did they have the facilities that they needed? Were things operating properly? The showers? What was about the recreation facilities? Going into the mess halls, I ate with the soldiers all the time, and then in the field, did they have the right equipment? Did they have the right support? Did they have what were the challenges they were facing? Because that kind of information does not get passed up through the chain in reports. And the only way you're going to get it is talk to the people. And that's what great leaders do in politics that we elect as well, is they don't just sit there in an ivory tower and look down from above that ivory tower. They're with the people. And so integrity, respect, honesty, these are the primary traits that, at least that's the way I was raised, and that's what I think is important for all of us.
Absolutely. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 here in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking with retired Major General Randy Manner. General, I want to pivot a little bit, but not too far. What you just said about leadership, I always harken back to my brother-in-law, who's retired from the Marine Corps as an officer, and he came through the enlisted ranks, warrant officer ranks, and then became commissioned. And one of the things that many of the folks that I know that have worked for him over the years said about him is, and they are still many of them refer to him as Gunny. Still they reference the fact that he did what you did in his ways. He never lost touch with the people, the enlisted men and women. And as a result of that, he maintained the respect of those as he went through the ranks, because he remembered literally where he came from. And right now, I think that's, when you were describing that, I thought about what so many of our political leaders have to embrace at this point, at this moment, is that connecting with people, everyday folk, to let them know we are hearing you. We, in some ways, are feeling what you're feeling, as a way to genuinely, not from a political standpoint, let folks know we have your back. We are in your corner. And I really applaud you for sharing that as one of some of the tenets that you've used in your military career and your post-military career. It's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff.
Well, thank you. And obviously, thank you also for his service as well. And for all those that are listening, it is always inspiring to know that when you go into a room and say, how many military or veterans are in the room? And 5%, 10% may raise their hands. And then you ask the question, okay, if you have a family member, a son, a daughter, a husband, a wife, an aunt or uncle or a parent that was in the military, 90% of the hands go up. 90%. That means that the military is us and we are the military. It's so very, very important that no matter what happens, no matter what city you might be in, if the National Guard or the military are there, we have to remember that these young men and women are us. And that they are following orders that they receive to be able to patrol or to do whatever. We've got to treat them with respect, and they will treat you with respect. They are us.
Yeah.
I can remember when my dad came back from Vietnam, he was prohibited from wearing his uniform off base because people would spit on him and everything else, and it was all real. And that's when there was this great divide between the military and average Americans. We cannot go back. And that's why the whole idea of using our National Guard and our military to patrol cities is absolutely un-American, and that is what dictators do, is they use the military to watch the people instead of to fight the nation's wars and deter others. That's the primary mission of the National Guard. And, of course, to save lives during hurricanes or floods or other natural disasters, forest fires. Absolutely not to be involved in patrolling American cities or towns. It is totally un-American.
You made a reference to this misuse of power, this misuse of resources. It could ruin the American view of the military.
Yes.
And talk a little bit about that if you can.
So it's important for all the listeners to understand that National Guardsmen, they have civilian jobs, or they are going to college, or they're in some way employed outside. So we have to remember that these young men and women are local. They're in your community. They're in your town. They're in the country. They're in the city. And they may have joined to obviously serve their country or their community, but many of them, of course, they can get an education. They can learn a trade. And it's just a terrific situation and a terrific opportunity. At the same time, it is extremely rare over the decades of my 35 years of service where the military was asked to augment law enforcement. Now, that is one of the prerogatives that's available to a governor, and that has been used from time to time. At the same time, again, you join the military to be able to serve your fellow Americans overseas as a deterrent, as well as, of course, to help save lives. We need to keep that in mind. This is an absolute misuse of this scarce resource. It's estimated, I've done the math, for 1,000 guardsmen for 1 week is just about $3 million is the cost. Can you imagine if we were to give D.C., which now has 2,300 National Guardsmen deployed there, so that's probably somewhere about $7 million a week. If the local community had that to invest in community engagement, to be able to invest perhaps in additional law enforcement officers, to invest in homeless shelters, to invest in food programs, $7 million a week. That's a lot of money.
That's a whole bunch of money.
That's a lot of money.
That's $300 million a year to go into a community. If I did my math right, yeah, just about $300 million a year that could go toward all the things we just talked about. And what's so interesting about that, when we tie that to what Mayor Johnson's been talking about, and that is better community policing, but also better opportunities in communities that have been left behind or that need it, or even communities that are on the rise. Imagine investing that kind of money into those kinds of preventative and fostering and growth-oriented programs. That would be the epitome. Maybe I'm being overstretching on that. That would be a great example of rising tides lifts all ships.
Yes.
Because from the bottom, all the folks that are troubled and have issues, like you said, mental health, all the list goes on and on. Veterans Affairs. How about putting those resources there? And so sometimes, General, I speak to that from my voice, but every now and again, it's nice to have someone with literally your stripes and your history and reputation to not make what I said right, but to validate that I'm not crazy, or that the concept
you're on target.
Let me put it differently: that the concept is not crazy. That's how we should be spending those resources.
Yes,
that's what we as a country, to show our leadership, should be doing.
Yes,
not going into communities and not really getting anything done. It had to burn your biscuit to see National Guard men and women picking up trash.
This whole idea of them being the National Gardeners, I mean, it's insulting to every one of those young men and women. And we will start to see...
Not that picking up trash is a thing that... Right,
no,
so we want to be... But I know it... Sorry.
So our National Guardsmen, men and women, are trained to, quite frankly, close with and destroy the enemy. Mm-hmm. That's what they're trained to do. And then they have that secondary mission to help save lives in peacetime from natural disasters. These young men and women are highly trained. But they're not highly trained to be law enforcement officers. They receive maybe 5 to 10 hours of training.
Wow.
And compared to 4 to 6 months of what a law enforcement officer gets. In addition, they're making make-up jobs for these young men and women. And these young men and women are very bored. The employers are not supportive.
Go ahead, take a sip of water. I know how it gets in the morning. I get it every day.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So employers are starting to get upset because obviously, hey, I need you, and I support you when you go overseas. I support you when you're saving lives in a flood or a hurricane. But walking in the streets of D.C. or Memphis or whatever, no. And then we have to remember that for a lot of these young men and women that are married or have children, whether they are part of a 2-parent household or a single-parent household, we have to remember that many of them are earning less money than they did in their civilian job. And on top of that, if they work for themselves or they work on a farm, there's no one else to do the work.
Right.
And there's no one to get the pay. And so the problem is that family members are actually starting to suffer because of these deployments for these missions on these orders that are very short term. And we're literally, these deployments are on the back of our young men and women in uniform. I find it absolutely unforgivable and disrespectful of our military that these are political pawns, and they are not doing the missions for which they were trained, which means if this is truly a law enforcement operation, then bring in additional law enforcement personnel to help the mayors and the governors of the cities that perhaps need some help. I find it interesting the Tennessee governor did not call in the National Guard on his own until the president said, I'll pay for it. And he said, oh, sure, you're my buddy. I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
And so all the viewers have to understand, if there was a problem, that governor would have had the responsibility and the authority to have done it on his own, and he did not do so.
Thank you. And this is, there's so much in what you just said, and I want to reverse, kind of peel that back. The governor there would have said, I would have done it already, one. Secondly, think about this, you guys, those particularly who challenge what we have been saying in this space. When the president says he'll pay for it, he's not reaching into his pocket.
That's right.
That's coming out of our federal tax dollars.
That's my pocket. That's your pocket.
So, and did you hear what the general said about how this is impacting families and how folks who are most of the time that are deployed, that are part of the National Guard, I know this, but many folks don't, probably even didn't even think about that level of disruption that's taking place with families.
Absolutely.
And that's where I candidly have to say this. Many of us have to do more of a job, I won't say a better job, of continuing to inform. That's why I'm thankful to have you on the show to share that with folks, because a lot of people don't know that, General.
Well, it's very, I completely understand, because the military, even though only about 3% of the population has ever been in the military, we just don't really know about it, except for the fact that we know they take care of us. And it's completely okay. And that's why I'm very grateful to be on the show with you, to be able to just speak to facts and to speak to what is truth. And the viewers have to understand that Again, this is not the proper use of the military. We must not tolerate it. We must push back, whether you have a elected blue official or red. This is not America. And it's just so disturbing to me. This is what dictators do. This is what Putin does. This is what you find in North Korea, in China, where the governments deploy the military against their own people to watch them.
Yeah.
It's not good.
It's not good, but at the same time, and I think this is going back. I'll take us back to where we started with your definition and based on your experience of leadership, and right now, I think more than ever, people are craving and looking and needing it. But let's remember the importance of community, as General Manner said. Community is important. Connecting with those that you know is important. Staying in connection with them is important, and making sure we're doing our part to keep people who might be feeling lost from being in that situation. And so, I appreciate you reminding us of that.
I think it's very important because people always say, well, what do I do? There's several things you can do. The first one is volunteer in your church, volunteer in your community, do something. If you're not volunteering at all, you need to start. And do something you're passionate about. And whether that means helping other people or maybe helping in a school or helping in your church, it could be even helping at the shelter, for whether that is for, an animal shelter or maybe even at a homeless shelter, a battered women shelter. Do something. And number two, if you don't have the time to do this because things are chaotic, then perhaps donate to those agencies and those organizations that reflect your values and what you believe in. So that's the second thing you can do. And the third thing you can do is be far more active in your community, to stand up for what is right and to make sure to be that beacon of inspiration and hope for your own family and, of course, for your church, your community, your business. You've got to stand up. This is the time when all of us are going to be tried, quite frankly, as never before. All of us, all the listeners, this is the time to stand up for what is right for yourself, your family, your community, and your town, your city, your country.
Yeah, without a doubt. And this is someone that stood up for the country. Major General Randy Manner, thank you for being with us this morning in studio.
Thank you, sir.
I know our audience appreciates you taking the time to help through this conversation. You stay safe. We look forward to having you back.
I'll be back, sir.
I'm going to bother you because I'm getting you back in studio.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks. Let's take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM, and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
WCPT will be broadcasting a live in-person Union Strong panel on Wednesday, October 15th from 3 to 5 p.m. And you're invited. Join me, Tom Hartman, and WCPT's morning host, Richard Chu, at the Ironworkers Local 63 Training Center in Broadview. Panelists include Paul Wendy from Ironworkers Local 63, Rob Fulton from Riggers Local 136, Cliff Horowitz from Horowitz & Associates, Andy Rico from IBEW Local 176, and Tom Villanova from Southland Friends of Labor. This event is proudly sponsored by Ironworkers Local 63, Riggers Local 136, Horowitz & Associates, IBEW Local 176, and Southland Friends of Labor. Wednesday, October 15th from 3 to 5 p.m., Ironworkers Local 63 Training Center, 2523 Lexington Street in Broadview. That's just off the 25th Street exit on the Eisenhower Expressway. All listeners must register to attend this free event at WCPT820.com. Just click on the banner.
Listen up, fellow timeshare owners. If you're a timeshare owner and you want out at all costs, you're done, frustrated, tired of wasting money, you don't use the darn thing. Get out now. Hire the best Bulldog timeshare cancellation team in the business. Their in-house legal team, headed by a timeshare cancellation lawyer, can help you fight the biggest and baddest companies out there that sell timeshare. At some point, you were using your timeshare, but now you're not, and you're tired of wasting money. Before you go to the poorhouse, Call right now and learn how you can stop the maintenance fees and put more money back in your pocket. Their services cost you a lot less than you think, and you'll save a lot of money over time. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline now. It's a free consultation.
800-296-0150. 800-296-0150. 800-296-0150. That's 800-296-0150.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caro. For today, some patchy fog possible to start. Otherwise, we'll see a good deal of sunshine, high temperatures into the mid-80s. Then for tonight, mostly clear, a low of 62. Still very summer-like on Thursday, high of 85 degrees with abundant sunshine. Friday, more of a mixture of sun and clouds, up to 82. Slight chance for an afternoon storm Saturday, low 80s. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 63.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Great to have Kurt Mullett on, and of course, great to have retired Major General Randy Manner with us this morning, talking about leadership, talking about what we all can do, and better using our resources when it comes to the National Guard. So great to have him with us, and we'll have him back. He'll have a lot to say about the things that we're all dealing with. In the past, or a few weeks ago, we had this woman with us who is just a powerhouse voice when it comes to talking about what's happening in our society right now. She's an essayist and a memoirist. I love those words, those kind of words that you got to look at and read and say out loud 10 times before you mess them up. But she's also the director of low residency Master of Fine Arts and Creative Writing program at the University of Reno, Nevada in Lake Tahoe. So there's some great views from there. And the author of The Kneeling Man, My Father's Life as a Black Spy Who Witnessed the Assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Long introduction, but definitely warranted. Leta, McCollough, Seletzky. Good morning, Ms. Seletzky, and welcome back to the show.
Good morning. It's great to be back.
How have you been?
I have been doing fine, along with a lot of folks. I've been watching the news and what's going on in this society and trying to figure out how I can respond in a way that is, uplifting the values of life and liberty, freedom, and dignity.
Yep. I know what you mean. The uplifting part is really what I've been trying to focus on. I know that, and I've been talking as much as I can, particularly this week, since Monday, on, we have to move forward. And we know that, quote unquote, the elephant in the room for a lot of people is still to talk about this murder of Charlie Kirk. You are not a stranger to knowing that violence exists in our country. But we also, as I've said a number of times since last Thursday, we lost a number of children in school shootings as well. And so let's have a conversation about assault rifles and guns on the street. We get rid of those. We start to really, really make a dent in this problem of gun violence in the United States of America. What are your thoughts there?
Well, my thoughts are, there's this quote that I love from Questlove, and he said, the way that you come to history has a lot to do with the way that history comes to you. And I feel like, that's kind of the way that I look at society and what's happening is, just sort of what is it in my background that has been formative for me? And unfortunately, gun violence is a big part of that. With my dad having been so central in the famous photograph of Dr. King's assassination and kind of what was going on the balcony that day, I mean, even from the earliest of ages, when I thought about assassinations or gunshots, I would automatically think about that photo and my dad. And now that we're reckoning with such gun violence in every sphere of our lives here in the United States, it's just made me realize the extent to which gun violence rules what happens in this country, and how so much of what we do and really who we are has to do with the explicit and implicit threat of violence. And, you know, it's the guns. Yeah. People try to point to all these other reasons why there's such violence, and, you know, looking at, of course, we do have problems with mental health. We have problems with people feeling disconnected from society and all of these things. But it's the guns, and that much is clear. It's just that we have folks who think that having, you know, these firearms and the rights to have them, you know, unfettered access to them is more important than the massive scale of death and injury that we're seeing. And I just think that's wrong. I oppose that. And I think a lot of people oppose that.
It's good to hear another person speak to that. And every now and again, I'm sure you have those moments where you go, am I the crazy one in the room or on this topic? But I've been very, for lack of better words, Ms. Seletzky, I've been very unapologetic about get rid of all of them. I mean, I'm that, and I look at it like this. We've had such a misdirection and misunderstanding and misuse of the Second Amendment that I think that the only way to correct it isn't baby steps as it relates to guns, particularly assault rifles. I know that that's what a lot of people, politically speaking, want to use as a tool to get there, and I understand that that's kind of where we are, and maybe I'm in the clouds on this, but I'm of the mindset of just get rid of all of them unless it's well-trained law enforcement and military. And some people have said to me, well, Richard, but how do we then take advantage, how do we then protect ourselves in the event of something happening? I'm saying, well, if there aren't guns out there for people to have access to commit violence, then what are you protecting yourself from? I know it may seem a little bit pie in the sky. I recognize that. I'm not crazy. At least I don't think I am. But that's where I go with this. Is that let's just end it. Let's stop taking little baby steps and nibbles at it, because it is, as you so well stated, it's become a core part of our society, which is shameful.
I agree with that. And, you know, I'm no constitutional law scholar, but I cannot believe, and I know that it is not correct to say that this situation that we're in is what was envisioned when the Second Amendment was drafted and enacted. There's no way. I mean, first of all, the types of arms that we can have are not going to protect one against state power. I mean, unless we're going to allow people to have warheads, I don't think so.
Have you ever been sitting around, Leta, and we're just going to have some fun for a second on a very, very tough, sorrowful subject. Have you ever been sitting around and have somebody say, yeah, but I got to protect myself from in case the government decides to come after me? Dude, listen. If that, and we are in that moment now, but I'm sure if you and me and 10 other people were sitting around and one of the 10 started to say that, we'd look at them like, have you lost your mind? Because if any government entity decided to actually turn its armament on a segment of our society, you ain't winning that fight.
Period. I mean, we're at the point where somebody could push a button somewhere,
and you're done.
And make things. You're done. Like, it's over. Your assault weapon is not going to protect you. I mean, that's just facts. Like, that's just facts. So what are we doing here? And also. And I understand exactly why you take the position that you take, because it has gone so far. It's gone so far to the point where, I mean, we're really, we're attacking each other. There's no fundamental right being upheld. If anything, we have fundamental rights being chilled because of these guns.
Yep.
Now, funny enough, and I've thought about writing about this because, growing up in the South, in Memphis, and spending a lot of time with my grandparents who were both from Mississippi, I grew up around guns. And, part of the reason why I think my grandparents and people in the community always had guns around was, they really did grow up with this need to protect themselves from the encroaching violence around them, which was, from folks who were perpetuating racial terror.
Yep. So to that end, and that's the part where I hear people when they say, "No, Rich, you're crazy, man. We have to be prepared." The broad population of white Americans don't have to prepare for this overtaking. We've never had white Americans' towns get burned down or bombed or raided by black folks. That's never happened. We've got story after story, evidence after evidence of that actually happening in black communities, in black towns. That's a reality for us. It's not a reality for our white brothers and sisters in the United States of America. It just doesn't exist. So that's where, I recognize my argument has some holes to punch in it, but at the same time, if we don't have to be threatened by the threat that we're threatened by, then we don't need the defense mechanism, guns, to protect ourselves. So I know it's a lofty goal. I recognize that, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that's where I come from sometimes. You're listening to Chew's Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chew. We are talking with author, essayist, memoirist. See, I almost got it right the first time. Leta McCollough Seletzky, and she's just been awesome in her work. Memphis is now near about under National Guard, or soon to be, having National Guard deployed there. It's your hometown, it's your home community. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts are that history sure does rhyme. Because, first of all, and this kind of reinforces this thought that I have had, that has recurred ever since I started working on my book, which is that, Memphis is almost like America writ small. If you wanted to take America and the dynamics of what happened here, particularly when it comes to racial politics, and shrink it down to the size of a municipality, that would be Memphis. And so we see so many things come to a head in Memphis. Of course, we have the issue of the data center that's poisoning people, and, the racial injustice happening there. And now we have the National Guard, which was, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last time that the National Guard was prominently there would have been around the time, this would have been in 1968, when the sanitation workers were on strike and Dr. King was fighting on their behalf, and he led a march in Memphis that descended into disorder, which was the first time that had ever happened for him, totally unprecedented. And so there was disorder in the streets, and the National Guard was called in to restore order. And that is a really it's a chilling moment in history, because you have the might of the United States military turned on its citizens. And I remember my father telling me, and I wrote about this in The Kneeling Man, about how, when this happened, my father was, ex-Army, had, been honorably discharged from the Army, and was working as an undercover police officer now, infiltrating this group that law enforcement suspected of carrying out these subversive activities. But when that National Guard comes in, he realizes whatever uniform I'm wearing in this moment, I am a black man like all these other, I'm a black person like all these other black folks out here, and they can kill me with impunity. And, the government that I have served, that I served in uniform as an Army, as a soldier, is now turning its weaponry on me and on these neighborhoods and on these people.
Yeah.
And here we are again.
His service became essentially irrelevant to the way in which he was going to be perceived in that moment. What he had done had no relevance to how he's going to be perceived in that moment. And before you were on, we had Major General Randy Manner with us, who talked about the incredible misuse of resources in bringing the National Guard to any city in America. And he talked about that. We talked about the numbers, just in the pure cost of it versus what Memphis could use. I mean, we broke it down, Leta, to say essentially $7 million a week over the course of a month. Over the course of the year, it's $300 million. Imagine if just 10% of that, $30 million were infused into the city of Memphis, Tennessee, what it would do for the community at large, whether it be for social programs, whether it be for mental health, whether it be for veteran services, whether it be for services for elderly, for children, the list goes on, versus and a box of goodies for law enforcement, versus the National Guard coming in to actually do what? Pick up trash again? Tear up the streets? And so that's, the juxtaposition of what you described from the 60s, which many of us saw on television, to where we are today. There is a lot to be said for this lacking in leadership on a national level, federal level, but also on a local level there with the governor of the state of Tennessee.
Right. And, it's a betrayal, or at least it was in my father's eyes, to have, this machinery of war turned on the citizens, himself included. And as you say, it flies in the face of this idea that we're going to be fiscally responsible and that we want to pour resources where they're going to help. I mean, and so it just shows you and continues this thread of intellectual dishonesty. While we're sitting here trying to explain, point out what is obvious, which is, this is nonsense, they're busy making the plan and spending the money and throwing it in the most ineffective, means possible to achieve a stated goal that is dishonest on its face.
Yeah.
And really what it is, I mean, to my mind, is that, there are these sort of foregone conclusions. There are these moves to effectuate power and to bring people to heel. And so we have plans in place to make that happen, and then these ideas are retrofitted onto whatever the plan is that they come up with.
Yeah, and the plans really are well, there is a lot of discussion around there really isn't a plan. It's just to keep chaos constant. And by doing that, it's a distraction from people, and it's a way to wear people down to the point where they yield and they give up. And I know from what I know about you that that's not how you're built, and it's certainly not how I'm built. And my goal and objective is to make sure that we gather more and more people to let them know you're not alone, and that you are not going to be left out there in the cold. We are here to help, and we're just here to support and help you feel a part of something rather than what this federal regime is trying to do, and that's to separate and to divide us. I'm not going to tolerate that to the best of my ability, and I know that you aren't either. Let me ask you a quick question, and then we'll kind of wrap up. But with this situation with the body of a student, black student specifically, found hanging, what are you finding? What are you hearing? And just what are your thoughts in general about it?
Well, what I'm hearing, and I feel this very deeply, is that we need eyes on this. And that to find a black man hanging on a college campus in Mississippi is on its face suspicious. And so, to hear this rapid conclusion that there was no foul play is very disturbing. And so I feel like we need answers. There is contradictory information that's been coming out, but just what we know, the facts that everybody can agree on, the bare facts of the fact that, you have, the hanging on the campus of Delta State University, and we need to say his name, by the way, Trey Reed. That's the name that should be amplified right now. So we have that, and then there was also another person, an unhoused person, who was discovered hanging in Mississippi. We need eyes on that. We need answers because we know what the history is. Not just in Mississippi, but, nationwide, but particularly in Mississippi. Yeah. And so I'm glad to see that the NAACP is involved. I'm glad to see that Attorney Ben Crump is involved and that the family is holding officials to account. And so we'll see what develops. But, again, it goes back to this idea of the violence, the ambient violence in which we live, and the explicit and implicit threat of violence.
Yep, it's there, and we can't turn away from it. We have to look at it, and we have to lean into it to affect it. Its reduction is never going to go away completely, but to reduce it greatly. Lena, tell us what you're working on. I know that with your work at the university, that keeps you busy, but what else are you working on?
Well, aside from the university, which does keep me busy, and by the way, I feel that it really dovetails with the, more creative work that I do in terms of creative writing. But, it all goes back to the central idea that I have. And, you mentioned how, there seem to be these efforts to keep everybody in chaos and confused, and keep us anxious and our central nervous system's activated. So to me, I'm very much anti that. I'm very much, an orderly mind and, an overarching philosophy. And mine is basically this. What matters in life comes down to, making community. It's all about making or breaking community. And so, I focus on making community, whether it's in my job as the director of the low residency Master of Fine Arts program, and in creative writing at the University of Nevada, Reno at Lake Tahoe. And so we're bringing in storytellers to help them, to really cultivate these voices that we need so urgently. So to me, that's part of that making of community, because when we write, we're connecting with people on the page, and we're connecting people, with these stories that are taking us back to what it means to be human and moving in this world that we're in. But on a personal level, the creative work that I'm doing, I have so many book ideas that I'm just trying to line up. I finish one project and then I get to the next. So there's a nonfiction book, a story that I want to tell about that has not been ever told before, about a group of black people. I don't want to say too much because it's still kind of underway, but it's a group of black people who have served this country, and most people by design don't know who they are, but they're pioneers and they're trailblazers, and they have some very powerful stories to share. So there's that. And then I also have had for a long time the idea of a novel, and I've started on that, and I'm going to definitely turn to that more now that I have more time to do that. But it's a novel that has to do with journalism and sort of the death of the print newspaper, which we're seeing day by day. And this idea that the health or illness of American journalism goes hand in hand with the health or illness of democracy.
Wow. Those are powerful, and I'm looking forward to them. And that's why we're going to have you back again, like we said when we first had you on. Real quickly, how can folks find you as we wrap up today?
I would say the most efficient way would be to go on social media, because I'm always there. You can find me on Threads, and my handle is at La Seletzky, so that's LA_SELETZKY. You can also find me at LetaSeletsky.com. That's one word. I have my own webpage that I'm going to be revamping and working on, but you can get in touch with me there. So that's LetaSeletzky.com.
Fantastic. Thanks for being with us again, Leta. It's always a pleasure. I do follow you, and I love what you have out there. Stay safe, okay, and stay strong. We appreciate you being with us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye now. All right, guys. Wow. Leta's been with us. General's been with us. Kurt's been with us. Not a bad Wednesday. Thanks to you guys for being with us this morning. As always, as I say, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
Still struggling with gas, bloat, constipation, nausea, or diarrhea? Have you tried eliminating foods but felt no change? It's time to call the tummy whisperer, Renee Barish, at